For many seniors, the quiet hours of the night aren't peaceful. They're restless, tossing, turning, staring at the ceiling until morning light breaks through. If you're over 65 and struggling with sleep, you are not alone. In fact, nearly half of all seniors in Europe and North America report chronic insomnia. And at the center of this mystery lies a tiny but powerful hormone, melatonin. But here's the question: does taking melatonin really solve the problem, or is it masking something deeper? In today's episode of Elderly Reflections, we're diving into the science, the stories, and the subtle truth behind melatonin and aging. You'll hear about real seniors, people just like you, who have tried, failed, and sometimes found surprising success on their path to restful sleep. It isn't just about sleep, it's about independence, dignity, and the right to feel rested. Whether you're someone struggling with nightly fatigue or you care for someone who is, this video will guide you with elderly wisdom, compassion, and practical insight. Don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Reflections and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next life lesson, senior health tip, or moment of quiet inspiration. At 72, Margaret DeLuca thought her days of exhaustion were behind her. She had a peaceful home outside Portland, a quiet garden full of lavender and rosemary, and for the first time in years, no alarms or deadlines. But every night, as darkness settled and silence filled the rooms, she lay awake, sometimes until 3, sometimes all the way till dawn. She wasn't stressed, at least not in the usual sense. She wasn't in pain, but the sleep she once took for granted had slipped quietly away, and no matter what she tried, warm milk, soft music, herbal teas, it never came back the same way. Margaret's experience isn't rare. In fact, it's incredibly common. Across the US and Europe, nearly half of all seniors over 65 report persistent sleep problems. And while society often shrugs it off as just a part of getting old, modern science tells us there's something far more intricate, something that begins in the brain, in a tiny pinecone-shaped gland with a molecule most of us have heard of, but few truly understand. Melatonin. Melatonin is not a sleeping pill. It's not a sedative. It doesn't knock you out like a drug. Rather, it's a natural hormone produced by the pineal gland that acts as a gentle messenger to the body. When darkness falls, melatonin levels rise, signaling to your system, the day is done, it's time to rest. In young people, this signal is clear, strong, rhythmic. But as we age, that signal weakens, both in strength and timing. Studies show that adults over 70 can have melatonin levels as low as 25% of what they had in their 20s. This doesn't just affect when we fall asleep. It affects how deeply we sleep, how long we stay asleep, and how restorative that sleep actually is. Dr. Elliot Hayes, a sleep specialist at Stanford University, explains, the decline in melatonin production is one of the most under-discussed causes of chronic insomnia in older adults. Most people think they're anxious, overtired, or just restless. But the truth is, their body isn't telling them it's time to sleep. The signal has simply gone quiet. Margaret tried melatonin supplements. At first they seemed promising. She'd fall asleep within an hour, sometimes sooner. But within weeks she noticed something odd. She still woke up too early. Some nights she felt groggy instead of rested. She increased her dose from 1 milligram to 5 milligram. The grogginess got worse. Her dreams became vivid, even disturbing. I thought if a little work more would be better, she said. It started to feel unnatural, like I was forcing my body to do something it wasn't ready for. Her experience is far from unusual. Melatonin supplements are among the most widely used sleep aids in the world. In the US, they're available over the counter, often in high doses that far exceed what the body naturally produces. But melatonin isn't a drug, it's a timing hormone. Taking too much doesn't deepen sleep. It disrupts the body's natural rhythm even further. According to the European Sleep Research Society, melatonin works best in small, precisely timed doses. Typically no more than 0.3 to 1 milligram, taken 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. When used properly, can help shift circadian rhythms and improve sleep onset. But used improperly or at too high a dose, it may cause early awakenings, drowsiness, and even nightmares. And melatonin is only one piece of the puzzle. The elderly face a variety of changes that impact sleep. Some biological, some behavioral, others emotional or environmental. One of the most significant yet overlooked causes is exposure to light, specifically artificial light at night. In the past, sunset meant darkness, and darkness meant sleep, but today seniors spend their evenings under bright LED lights. staring at televisions, tablets, or phones that emit blue light, the exact wavelength that suppresses melatonin production. Harvard researchers found that even 30 minutes of screen use before bed can reduce melatonin levels by over 50% in adults. For seniors whose levels are already low, this disruption can be devastating. James, a 77-year-old retired engineer in Birmingham, used to spend his evenings watching World War II documentaries on his iPad. "It was my little ritual," he said. "But I didn't realize the light was confusing my brain. I thought I was relaxing, but I was actually keeping myself awake." After a sleep specialist advised him to stop using screens 2 hours before bed, switch to warm ambient lighting, and read from a physical book instead, his sleep improved dramatically within 2 weeks. Beyond lighting, the brain itself undergoes changes that affect circadian rhythms, the body's internal clock that regulates when we feel awake or sleepy. This clock is controlled by a tiny region in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN. In younger people, the SCN responds powerfully to light cues, keeping sleep-wake cycles consistent. But with age, the SCN becomes less responsive, and the rhythms it controls begin to drift. Seniors often find themselves becoming sleepy earlier in the evening, waking up before dawn, or experiencing fragmented shallow sleep. This condition is known as advanced sleep phase disorder. Frank, an 80-year-old teacher from Chicago, experienced this firsthand. "I'd fall asleep on the couch at 8 p.m. without meaning to," he said. "And then I'd be wide awake by 3 a.m. I'd sit in the dark and wait for the world to catch up." Frank's physician prescribed morning light therapy, a bright light box used for 30 minutes at breakfast, to help reset his internal clock. Within a month, Frank's sleep cycle began to shift, and he found he could sleep until 5:30 or 6 again, giving him more energy and stability during the day. Medications are another hidden saboteur. Many seniors take multiple prescriptions: beta blockers, antidepressants, corticosteroids, antihistamines, all of which can interfere with sleep in subtle but meaningful ways. Some suppress melatonin. Others fragment REM sleep or cause frequent awakenings. Eleanor, 81, had been on a high-dose blood pressure regimen for years. When she finally saw a geriatric specialist for sleep issues, she was shocked to learn that her medications were part of the problem. Adjusting her dose, changing the time she took her pills, and reevaluating which were necessary helped restore her ability to sleep more deeply and consistently. Then there are the emotional burdens, often the heaviest of all. The night is when the mind is most alone, and for many elderly, that's when the quiet becomes unbearable. Loneliness, grief, and anxiety are potent disruptors of sleep. Carl, 79, lost his wife of 52 years to cancer. "It wasn't the silence that got to me," he said. "It was the memories that came with it. The house was too still, the bed too big. I wasn't afraid." For seniors like Carl, insomnia isn't a hormonal issue, it's a heart issue. No amount of melatonin can mend that kind of wound. What helps, research shows, is connection. Support groups, grief counseling, spiritual care, or even something as simple as a regular phone call from a loved one can ease the weight of emotional insomnia. At Elderly Reflections, we often hear from people who rediscovered sleep not through pills, but through purpose, by volunteering, joining walking clubs, or caring for a pet. In truth, the path to restful sleep after 65 is rarely simple. It's never just about one thing. It's a tapestry of biology, behavior, and belief. And melatonin, while important, is just one thread. True rest comes from restoring the rhythm of life itself: light, movement, connection, and care. The elderly deserve more than silence and sleeplessness. They deserve to feel at peace when the night falls. They deserve, in every sense, to rest well. For Charles Whitman, 81 mornings felt like recovering from a night he never fully entered. A retired Marine and former carpenter from rural Tennessee, Charles was known for his strength and precision. But in recent years, his hands had started to tremble. His memory wasn't sharp like it once was. "I used to build porches and kitchens with nothing but a pencil and instinct," he said. "But now I forget why I even came into the room." He blamed it on aging, until a neurologist told him his years of chronic insomnia were accelerating his cognitive decline. Sleep isn't just rest, it's restoration. And for seniors, the lack of it isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. For some, the first signs show up in the body: the way a cut takes longer to heal, or how a bruise lingers longer than it should. When sleep begins to falter, the body quietly starts to break down. After the age of 65, every hour of rest matters more than most people realize. Seniors who sleep less than 6 hours a night aren't just more tired, they're more vulnerable. Their immune systems are slower to respond, their hearts under more pressure, and their bones more brittle. A study out of Cambridge confirmed it. Sleep less, and the risk of heart disease climbs sharply. Another, published in Nature Aging, showed that chronic short sleep leads to rising blood pressure and blood sugar, even in those who seemed otherwise healthy. You can see it clearly in people like Rose Evans, a 76-year-old from Brighton. For years, she kept her diabetes under careful control, until her sleep began to slip. She wasn't eating more sugar, but her glucose numbers spiked anyway. Her doctor didn't change her medication. Instead, he helped her change her nights. No more late-night television, strict lights off at 10. Within a few months, her numbers calmed again, proof that even blood sugar listens to sleep. But the body isn't the only thing that suffers. Sometimes the signs of sleep loss are hidden in the mind. For many seniors, the first true warning sign is not physical at all. It's forgetting names, losing track of dates, walking into a room and not knowing why. They flush out proteins and waste, and when that process is interrupted, those toxic buildups begin to linger. That's why researchers at the University of Rochester found that just a few nights of poor sleep could increase dementia risk by nearly 40% in seniors. Lucille Tremblay, a 79-year-old retired librarian from Quebec, feared she was entering early Alzheimer's. She struggled to finish sentences. Words hovered but wouldn't land. But after a sleep study, doctors saw the real issue: fragmented REM cycles. Her brain wasn't getting a chance to recharge. Once she improved her sleep, naturally gently, her speech and focus came back. Turns out I wasn't losing my mind, she said. I was just losing my nights. And it doesn't stop with memory. Sleep-starved brains also carry heavier emotions: depression, anxiety, hopelessness. For those already living alone, the nights feel even longer. The silence grows thicker. A person may stop answering the phone, stop attending group meals, stop walking with neighbors, spots because they no longer have the energy to be part of the world. Charles the Marine understood this. When you don't sleep, he said, everything is louder: the pain, the fears, the regrets. You're not tired, you're haunted. And sometimes the danger of poor sleep doesn't come from within. It strikes when you stand up too quickly or lose your footing in the hallway. One of the most heartbreaking outcomes of chronic insomnia in older adults isn't what happens while lying in bed. It's what happens when they get out of it. A staggering number of hospitalizations among seniors come from falls. The CDC reports millions each year. What they don't always say is how many of those falls are the quiet aftermath of sleep deprivation. When the brain is tired, balance fades, reaction time slows, eyes blur. A person who normally walks with confidence suddenly feels unstable. And that's how people like Marianne Schmidt end up in rehab after a slip in the kitchen. Marianne was 82 and fiercely independent. She made her own breakfast, tended to her flowers, and walked her hallway every morning, until one foggy, sleep-starved step sent her to the hospital with a broken hip. It wasn't the fall that hurt the most, she told her niece. It was realizing I might not be able to live on my own again. Even behind the wheel, poor sleep takes its toll. Seniors may not drive long distances, but even a quick trip to the store can turn risky if your reflexes are dulled. It's no surprise that many countries now include sleep health in their elderly driver assessments. But perhaps the most invisible cost of chronic sleep loss is the quiet erosion of one's connection to others. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being too tired to belong. Many seniors who suffer from insomnia start withdrawing, not because they want to, but because being present becomes too hard. They skip birthday lunches, they avoid conversations, they stop showing up, not out of rudeness, but exhaustion. Ethan James, a 74-year-old former pastor from Minnesota, stopped going to Sunday service. People thought I lost my faith, he said, but I just couldn't stay awake, and when folks started whispering, I figured it was easier to disappear. That kind of emotional withdrawal is often mistaken for dementia or disinterest. But in many cases, it's something more treatable and more tragic. It's sleep loss, unseen, misunderstood, and deeply human. And in places like nursing homes and assisted living communities, where structure is fixed but empathy is sometimes forgotten, chronic insomnia can make the difference between a person thriving and a person fading. A senior who once walked to lunch may now need a wheelchair. A woman who once joined card games may stop speaking altogether. These aren't just signs of aging, they're signs of sleep-starved lives. What all of this tells us is simple. Missing sleep isn't a harmless part of aging. It's a silent destroyer. It weakens the immune system, wears down the bones, fogs the mind, and breaks the heart. But worst of all, it makes people feel invisible, like they're fading long before their time. At Elderly Reflections, we've spoken with hundreds of people who've walked this quiet road. And every time, one truth repeats: sleep isn't a luxury, it's a form of dignity. The next part of this journey is one of hope, because the story doesn't have to end here. In the final part of this video, we'll share how real seniors across the US and Europe are gently reclaiming their nights, without dependency, without shame, and without losing themselves in the process. From simple changes to inspiring routines, we'll explore what's possible when you choose to fight not just for sleep, but for peace. For many older adults, the journey to better sleep doesn't begin in a doctor's office. It begins in the stillness of a long, restless night, and the quiet decision that this isn't how life has to be. After the medications fail, after the frustration builds, some seniors turn inward and ask, "What can I do differently?" That's where healing starts. And surprisingly, the most effective solutions are often not found in pills or prescriptions, but in the rhythms of life itself. Let's begin with something as simple and as powerful as light. It was sunlight that changed everything for Annabelle Weiss, a 75-year-old former nurse from Manchester, England. For years, she struggled to fall asleep before 2 a.m. Every morning, she'd feel groggy, confused, offbeat. Doctors offered melatonin, but it didn't help. "My rhythm was broken," she said. "I didn't know when to sleep anymore." Then her granddaughter gave her a gift, a full-spectrum light lamp. Every morning, Annabelle sat near the lamp for 30 minutes during breakfast. It mimicked natural daylight, helping her brain re-establish the sleep-wake cycle it had forgotten. Within 3 weeks, she began to feel sleepy around 10 p.m. and wake up around 6. "It wasn't magic," she said. "It was biology." Studies from the University of Colorado confirm this. Seniors exposed to natural morning light or therapeutic light devices show improvements in sleep onset, duration, and mood. Light is more than brightness. It's a message to the brain: you are still connected to the sun, and the day belongs to you. Of course, light is only one part of the rhythm. The other is movement. At 79, Harold Green had become sedentary. A retired postman from Ohio, he once walked 10 miles a day without thinking. But in retirement, that movement stopped. His sleep suffered. He felt exhausted but restless. "I'd lie in bed, but my body wasn't tired in the right way," he said. A physical therapist recommended he begin walking again. Not far, just around the block twice a day. Within 10 days, he was falling asleep faster. Within a month, he was staying asleep through the night. Exercise, particularly in daylight hours, has a profound effect on sleep quality. It regulates body temperature, reduces anxiety, and increases the time spent in deep sleep. But more importantly, it restores a sense of agency. For seniors, movement is freedom, and freedom leads to peace. For others, it isn't light or exercise, but food. That begins the shift. Gertrude Alvarez, 83, from Seville, Spain, never linked her sleep issues to her evening glass of wine, nor her late-night chocolate habit. But after joining a local senior wellness group, she learned that caffeine and alcohol, especially late in the day, can drastically disrupt sleep patterns. She adjusted her meals: more whole grains at dinner, no caffeine after 2 p.m., and calming herbal teas in the evening, especially chamomile and lemon balm. "I sleep lighter now, but longer," she said. "I dream again." Nutritionists confirm that foods rich in magnesium, tryptophan, and vitamin B6, like oats, bananas, almonds, and yogurt, can promote natural melatonin production. For the elderly, who often lack these nutrients due to dietary restrictions or appetite loss, these simple changes can reignite the body's sleep machinery. Then there are those who find their solution not in light or food or movement, but in connection. Thomas Doyle, 80, had not slept through the night since his wife passed 5 years prior. Loneliness isn't always loud, but at night it becomes impossible to ignore. He filled the hours with TV, puzzles, silence, and still sleep escaped him. A neighbor invited him to a weekly chess club. Mostly older men, mostly just passing time. Thomas went, reluctantly. The conversation was light, the routine steady. Over weeks, he began to look forward to Thursday afternoons. Then he added Wednesday morning walks. Then Sunday coffee. And without noticing, something shifted. "I stopped dreading the night," he said. "I wasn't alone with the quiet anymore." Mental health professionals have long pointed out the link between isolation and insomnia. But it isn't just that loneliness leads to poor sleep, it's that purpose leads to rest. When the day is rich with meaning, the night becomes a well-earned pause. Finally, we cannot ignore the role of ritual. In Vienna, 78-year-old Ingrid Muller created a bedtime ritual that became sacred. At 9 p.m. sharp, she brewed lavender tea, turned off all devices, played slow cello music, and massaged her hands with warm almond oil. No screens, no distractions, just stillness. By 9:45, her breathing slowed, her mind softened, and sleep came naturally. "I treat sleep like a visitor," she said. "If I make space for it, it comes gently." This mindset of welcoming rest rather than chasing it is something we've heard from many seniors across Europe and North America. They don't fight the clock anymore. They work with it, and in doing so, they reclaim the dignity of restful nights. At Elderly Reflections, we believe these stories carry more weight than any study because they are lived. They come from men and women who've struggled, adjusted, and persisted. Their elderly wisdom is earned, and it tells us sleep can return. It begins with respect for the body, the rhythm, and the life you still deserve. In conclusion, insomnia in old age is not a sentence. It's a signal, one that the body is asking for restoration, light, movement, nourishment, connection, and ritual. These are the gentle tools with which seniors across the world are rebuilding their nights. If you are struggling, know this: you are not broken. You are out of rhythm, and rhythm can be found again. If this story moved you or reminded you of someone you care about, please like this video, subscribe to Elderly Reflections, and turn on the bell so you never miss a moment of senior health inspiration. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We'd love to hear your story too.